BFM Business. Tout pour investir, Stéphane Pedrazzi.
You're certainly familiar with mobile investment applications. They are developing more and more through gamification. We'll explain all of this to you with Damien Roux, CEO of Drimify. Hello.
Hello, Stéphane.
Thank you for being with us.
There's an interesting figure. On average, people install between 60 and 80 different applications on their mobile, but they only use 6 to 8 of them. So, roughly speaking, that represents about 10%. And when we look more closely, we realize that the apps used regularly are mainly those that create an emotional connection, such as instant messaging and similar apps.
So that means if these apps want to be used more, they need to create an emotional connection with the smartphone user.
Or at least an interaction, meaning they offer something beyond their initial function. And this is where gamification can intervene, adding that layer of interaction, which will create engagement and potentially build user loyalty.
So when we talk about gamification, can you explain exactly what it entails?
Gamification is when we use game mechanics to create engagement and loyalty. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a game, but involves elements like leaderboards, points, badges, everything that allows progress in a fun way.
For example, in an application that allows investing in the markets, establishing a ranking of those who have performed the best.
Exactly.
Over a week, over a month?
Or even facilitating the user's learning experience. If I'm a user, what do I want this application to provide? I want it to make me a better investor. So in fact, gamification has this educational power that helps people learn how to invest better, discover markets, or even discover the application's features.
Do all investment platforms, or at least the majority today, offer this gamification, or is it still a minority?
Well, as I mentioned recently, finance and banking are still somewhat hesitant about this.
It's not in the industry's culture.
Exactly. We tend to associate gamification with games, but in fact, there are business objectives and goals behind gamification aiming for performance.
Could you give concrete examples? You mentioned engagement, awareness, and rewards.
Imagine tomorrow I decide to start investing. As a standard user, what are the right tips? How do I choose my application? I might wonder which one offers the best onboarding process. That means when I download it, what happens next? Will I be asked right away to add money and start investing, or will they try to educate me on how to do it properly?
So that really becomes one of the criteria to consider when choosing the best investment application. For example, how do we ensure that gamification doesn't overshadow the app's primary purpose, which is trading or investing, making sure it doesn't turn into a game app and remains an investment tool?
And that's where gamification should be seen as more of a superpower rather than pure entertainment. It's about giving people the superpower to educate themselves, understand the markets better, and become better investors. It should be seen as support.
So it's more about pedagogy than playing.
Exactly. The term gamification contains the word game, but there isn't necessarily that element of play. We use game mechanics, but it's more about implementing a logical sequence to develop skills and help users improve their competence.
And where do we draw the line between the game, pedagogy, and the core function of the application?
It's often the brand or company that decides where to place this balance. Some companies like Revolut may have a more playful approach, while traditional banks might be more reserved. But we all know how to play before we know how to walk. So play is universal. So in essence, there's no limit, and it's truly universal.
How do clients, whether they're banks or neobanks, define the level of gamification? Is it based on their client profiles? You mentioned Revolut, which obviously doesn't have the same approach as a traditional bank.
It's about the company culture and the image that the brand wants to project. Fintech companies tend to take a more innovative angle. However, traditional banks also have a vested interest in catching up, and they're already doing so with various products.
What is your role at Drimify? What do you offer?
At Drimify, we offer a catalog of games and gamification mechanics, providing experiences that can be added in a plug-and-play manner. It's like adding a layer to an existing application that brings all these gamification functionalities.
So if I'm a bank or a financial institution and I want to offer a trading app, I come to you and you add this layer of games or pedagogy to my application.
Exactly. We try to understand the different touch points of the customer experience and identify when to create more engagement, where the client might leave the application, or when they need help. It's at these crucial moments in the user experience where we incorporate gamification.
And how do I measure the effectiveness of this gamification on my original application?
The main KPI will be the engagement rate. Essentially, out of 100 people exposed to gamification, How many engaged with the system? Generally, we see engagement rates of around 85%, which is quite high compared to other more standard media. Another key metric is adoption, and the last important one is retention. This measures how many people will continue using the app over time. Gamification is extremely powerful in the sense that when we take a recurring approach, regularly introducing gamification, adoption and retention are constantly increasing. This is where the true benefit lies. It's really about this recurring aspect.
Does this gamification change the user profile? Is there a risk of alienating the core target audience?
As I said, it should be seen as a superpower. Currently, we are incorporating artificial intelligence everywhere to help users and clients become better. Gamification fits into this concept perfectly, and AI integrates seamlessly into gamification. Many people want to invest but don't know where to start because they lack the knowledge. Gamification can play this educational role.
From a user's point of view, what will be the user experience on these apps tomorrow? You mentioned how much it has evolved. Artificial intelligence brings new possibilities.
I truly believe that the secret to successful apps in the future lies in personalization. Today, we all more or less have the same experience when opening our apps. The challenge will be to identify the user's profile during onboarding and then provide them with tailored content like a pedagogical learning path to help them invest better and ultimately invest more.
So this means my app, installed on my phone with my usage habits, will, as I learn, be different from that of a colleague or another person? Is that the future of these apps?
We always have our phone in our pocket and spend time scrolling through videos on social networks without any particular purpose, mainly for entertainment. Why not offer educational journeys, training paths, like having a finance teacher in your pocket to help you climb the ranks?
The regulatory framework is quite important when we talk about finance and financial products. Is there a risk when we turn these apps into games that we might step outside of the regulatory framework?
Again, each brand or company can set the boundaries, and each country is different on this matter. The idea is not to push spending more, but to make people smarter.
But isn't there a risk that the game might bias investment? That was the intent of my question.
It depends on how it's implemented. When it's done as a quiz, where questions evolve the user's knowledge, we're not pushing them to act. It's always about how it's done, and we guide companies on how to do things the right way.
We're not encouraging or favoring any specific type of investment?
No, not at all. Of course, as with anything, it can be used as desired, but the fundamental goal is to improve the knowledge and skills of the end user.
Which investment applications are currently the most popular?
It's hard to define, and that's why we also adopt an evangelical approach. We explain all this. There are apps like Revolut, which now offer crypto investments in portfolios, but finance tends to be slower to adopt innovative trends than other industries. But we see very successful examples in the telecom world and among energy providers, and we know that finance will catch up soon.
A final question. What is the typical user profile of these applications? Instinctively, one would think they are younger people, clients of neobanks or online banks. Is this true in practice?
Again, it's because these companies offer gamification to their users. A neobank with a more innovative approach will adopt gamification, and since it reaches younger clients, we tend to think the audience will be younger. However, every company decides how they want to educate and engage their clients.
Thank you very much, Damien Roux, CEO, Drimify gamification platform. You help investment apps become more engaging by adding interactivity either through games or educational features. Thank you very much.